Hello, my name is Vasanta and welcome to my YouTube channel. The video that you are about to watch is a masterclass that was given as part of the introductory course to Vedic Astrology that I held last spring. And in this class, what you're going to learn is everything about the lordships of the planets over the signs of the Zodiac in the planetary system as given by Vedic Astrology. So it is a super interesting theme. In Vedic Astrology, I would say that this is the core, and that if you know this knowledge that you're about to watch, pretty much you can get very well around understanding why some people are lucky in life and why some people find it more difficult to reach success. It all has to do with the planetary harmony and with the state of the Lord of the sign. So for about an hour you'll be listening to an expert of the class. The class was actually 2 hours, but for the course of an hour here in the YouTube channel we're releasing it so that if you're out there and you're looking for this information, may it serve you well. If you're interested in knowing more about the courses that I give, you may find the link below. We have just made the introductory course evergreen, and I am currently starting a secondary level course which I called my advanced course, where you will learn all the advanced prediction techniques, etc. All the information is in the website below. We can imagine the universe as a kingdom. So I'm going to explain it to you in the story way so that you can understand how it functions. So the universe and your consciousness is a kingdom. So a long time ago, in a galaxy far away, you can tell yourself a story, okay? So at the center of this kingdom, of course, there is the king. So the king approached God and he asked God for a realm, for a kingdom. And God gave the king Leo. Understand? God gave the king Leo. So he told the king, you are going to rule. How? Your realm is going to be Leo. You're going to rule over Leo. That's going to be your home. So every king has a castle. When the sun, who's the king? The king is the sun. So the sun is the king of the Zodiac. Why? Because it's the Atma, the person, the I am inside of your consciousness, that voice of personality. That is the sun. It's a king, it's in Leo. But then the feminine principle in the universe, right? We have yin and yang. We had explained that already. So then the feminine principle, the reflective principle, came into play. And the moon, the queen, right? The queen asked God for her own kingdom, for her own realm. Because the queen also wanted to have some power. And so God gave the queen Cancer. So can we remember that sun is king and moon is queen?
Yeah.
No doubt about it, okay? So that's the moon. Then the kingdom needed to be arranged, and things need to be executed in the proper way so that everybody could live, right? So the king and the queen hired a prime minister. So the hand of the king, the prime minister. Who is the prime minister? What is the closest planet to the sun always? You know? Mercury. So Mercury approached God and he folded his hands to God and he said, it's like, okay, I have a job. My job is to make sense of reality for the king and to organize the kingdom so that we can understand each other, right? And also to communicate everything that the king wants. So like, for example, if you've ever watched Cinderella, fairy tales are fantastic in order to understand astrology. If you ever watched Cinderella, the king gives this order that by the order of the king, all the girls should come to the kingdom to the ball because the prince wants to get married. And so, you know, this communication is sent to every house of the kingdom. But it's not the king himself that goes everywhere. He has a messenger. And the messenger is Gemini. So the Duke, you know, like in the Disney movie, is the guy with the little glass. He only has one glass and he goes like this. So, you know, he's going around and communicating what the king said. So the king approached God and said, okay, so I cannot do everything because I can only be in the castle in one place at a time. So I need a prime minister. So the prime minister needs to have power. Now, is the prime minister only serving the king, or is the prime minister also serving the queen? If it is a well-balanced kingdom, then the prime minister will be serving both. So the prime minister, which is a Mercury, so you can say prime minister, the PM. The prime minister approached the king, and the king gave him Gemini. So remember, the prime minister is Mercury. Mercury is the messenger. Okay? So the sun gave him Gemini. Why Gemini? Because Gemini is an odd number. There's pairs and there are odd numbers. Understand? What are the odd numbers? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. What are pairs? Pairs could be always divided by 2. 2 into 1 equals 1 plus 1 is 2. Then 4. 2 plus 2, 4. 6, 3 plus 3, 6. 8, 4 plus 4, 8. 10, 5 plus 5, 10. 12, 6 plus 6, 12. Yes? So those are pairs. The pairs are feminine. They belong to the moon. Please remember this. Pairs are feminine. So they belong to feminine energy. They are more reflective. Right? So how to understand the difference between the sun and the moon? And this is very nice. If you have a smartphone, you will know this. If you open the camera app in your smartphone, what does the camera app do? The app can only capture what is already out there. So that's the sun. What is already out there, the vibration that is being emitted by our sun consciousness, is what gives life to the entire planet and makes it be what it is. All the colors, why? Because it's light. So the light that is emanating from the sun, right? So that's the sun principle, male. But what does the camera do? A camera is a perfect metaphor for the mind, because the camera can only capture what is already there. Depending on the type of lens that you have, will be the quality of what you can capture. So if you have a good moon, you'll have good colors. If you have a crappy lens, you're never going to be happy with your photos, right? Or if you have a broken lens. But a camera is a reflective device. It catches what is already there. So that is the mind. That's the moon. So working for the king, right? The king is in 5. So on top of 5 is Gemini. So the prime minister became Gemini. Okay? So the realm of the prime minister is to be a messenger. Now, when the prime minister is serving the queen, right? What happens? When the prime minister is serving the queen, then he comes into Virgo. Why? Because the queen wants to make sure that everything in the kingdom is organized and that everybody is healthy. So in order for people to be citizens and have civil rights and reach some type of organization and equality, there is a need for logic. So if you see the table where, we have this table where we have the squares. Logic, people think that logic is actually a male quality, but actually logic is female. Reason is male, logic is female. Logic is practical. Logic keeps us alive. Logic is the law. The law is for everybody. Even though the sun enforces the law, the logic that everybody have equality, this is organizational. So it's for the purpose of survival. It's not very creative. It tends to stabilize. Whatever stabilizes does not move. Whatever does not move becomes gross. Whatever is always moving is subtle. Do you understand? The less movement something has, the more stable it is. The more stable something is, the more gross it becomes. It stagnates. Okay? So Virgo is logic. So Mercury can work both on the basis of reason, which is your wit, how to put words together to convey a message. That is reason. The capacity to think, to reason, to put ideas together with your processor. Now, the capacity to organize, delegate, manage, make laws, put everything into place, give rhythm, right? That is going to be Virgo. But at the heart of those two, there is the planet Mercury. So Mercury feels very well in Virgo. He feels very well in Gemini because he dominates. Those are his two signs. Mercury will always be happy in Virgo and Gemini. Understood? So one day, this is going on, all right? So one day, the king and the queen, they had a baby. Because the king and the queen, they came together. And they were very happy to have a kingdom. And then what happened is they kissed each other and they had a baby. And then the baby was a prince. The baby, it was a prince. And the prince grew up one day. And the prince had a lot of, he had a lot of power. Because he is the son of the king and the queen. So he's very outgoing and he's a boy. And he wants to get stuff done. And, since his father and his mother are backing him up, he feels like he can do anything, right? And he's young energy. So he approached the king and he said, "Dad, I want power. I want my power." And the dad said, "Okay, since I see that you're very strong and very outgoing, I think that you could have Aries." So this is the prince. The prince is Mars. And Mars is the planet of war. It's aggressive. Now, you try to see it in this way. Sometimes we see that war is a bad thing. But if the king does not stay in the castle, right? It's like the kingdom is in danger. Because the king knows what needs to be done and how things... He has to command, his castle. He has to command because he has power over that realm of consciousness. So somebody's got to go to war, and it's not going to be the prime minister. So who does he send? The person that he trusts the most and the bravest one. So if the realm needs to be protected, who is going to go protect the realm? It's going to be the prince, and the prince is Mars. So this is why Mars is suitable in Aries. Now the prince also approached his mother, and he asks his mother for a realm. And the queen thought that it would be very important for the prince to know himself in a deep way, so that he could understand that power is to serve and encourage. Power is very dangerous, and power can kill. Because Mars is very powerful, the prince is very powerful, and it is aggressive. So the queen gave the prince Scorpio. So Scorpio, if you know, is the realm of death. So that is where you explore life and death. That's where you explore change. That's where you explore shift. That's where you explore psychology. So why did the queen give this to the prince? Because she knew the prince is very independent. So where is the place where you can find the most independence? Within yourself. So the dark caverns of the self are the psyche. The dark caverns of the self is for every war the prince wins. That is, many people are going to die and everything has consequences. So that is what we're going to remember from the shots we took in life, right? That's going to be in our memory. And even if other people don't know, the prince knows how many people he killed in the war. What happens when you win a war? What happens when you lose a war? What happens when you do right? What happens when you do wrong? So that all of that is psychological baggage. All that baggage of cycles that end, of things that need to go so that new things can live. The letting go, the welcoming the new, finding the courage to live, life. Not an easy way, not an easy thing. So all that baggage goes into Scorpio. So this is why Scorpio is the most complicated of signs, but it's also the deepest of signs. So the queen thought that the only person that could handle that energy could be the prince, because you have to be so brave to handle that energy. So there is a story that tells the story of Scorpio really well. And that is the story of Perseus. Perseus killed Medusa. They say that Medusa was so angry that, she had this power that if she looked at you, she could turn you into stone. You would become petrified. So nobody could kill her. Medusa is actually a metaphor for the mind in anger. When the mind has gone, crazy with anger, jealousy, resentment, it becomes like Medusa because she can't be approached. So that's Scorpio. So what was the only remedy for Perseus? To cut her head off. And if you remember, her head was made of serpents. So the legend says that Perseus had to go to a very deep, dark cavern and kill Medusa without seeing her. So when we are talking about our psychology, there's aspects of ourselves that are not evident, we cannot see. Like that your iPhone takes photos, but do you really know how that happens inside of the phone? We've never been inside of the optics of the phone. We don't know what's inside of the camera, how that works, right? If something breaks inside, you gotta go to an expert. So you gotta be brave. Imagine that you're gonna open your phone. You gotta be so brave to do that because, you could break it or put something out of. So somebody that knows has to do that. It's called a psychologist, or it's called an astrologer. It's called a therapist or a healer. But in this case, since the situation was dire and extreme, the person that had to deal with that was Perseus. There's another image for that. It's the Kraken. It's the monster from the deeps. So like the demigods, the Greeks said that the demigods had this monster that they unleash when they want to destroy the world. And that monster unleashed is the Kraken. So the Kraken comes from the depths of the ocean. And, the ocean is water. And the monster is humongous. So that is what happens when we don't work on ourselves and our psychology. So Perseus has to deal with both of those issues. So actually the world is just reflecting Perseus' psychology. Perseus is one of those heroes that has both man and demigod inside of him, because he's the son of Zeus, but he's the son of a mortal woman. So it's a fantastic hero because he does not accept the power of the demigods. He wants to remain human until he can't anymore, because the challenges that he's facing are the results of the actions of the gods. So he needs godly power or kingly power to deal with those. So, you know, that's that at some point, you know, Zeus gives him a divine weapon, and you know, Athena gives him a shield, and with this shield, he's able to see the reflection of Medusa, not directly, but as a reflection, and then he kills her. So all of that stuff, it's a very Scorpio tale. It's a very, and you know, the reason why the Greeks wrote this is because if we share information by just technical information, it's very hard to understand what's going on inside of us. So all these stories have very dramatic characters, because dramatic characters will put our unconscious into motion, and they will make us understand. And this is why these stories survive up to our day, because they're a window into our inner psyche, into our inner world. So if you want to understand Scorpio, try to understand the story of Perseus and Medusa. It's a fantastic story. Now, what is the quality that Perseus had to have? He was the bravest of them all. There has been no other monster that is more scary than Medusa. Nobody in the history of monsters has created one that is as scary as that one. That's the scariest one. And Perseus is the one that conquered that challenge, because he faced his own shadows. You know, he went to the deepest caverns of the deepest shadows of the psyche to encounter Medusa. So try to understand those principles, right? You have to be so brave to be able to see yourself. You have to be so that's why Scorpios are the way they are. You know, if anybody's born with any indication in Scorpio, those people are brave. But they're also going to be a little bit aggressive. You know, because if you're going to go into the underworld, you got to be so brave. And you see, the capacity of Scorpio is like that. They want to find out what's going on wrong inside. And they're lonely and they're aggressive. But that aggression is only because they want to conquer themselves. Why am I stopping so much in Scorpio? Because it's the most difficult sign to understand. The other ones are very straightforward. Scorpio is not. Because Scorpio is mysterious, as death is mysterious. And if death has ever visited you, you will understand that death is very painful, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So Scorpio, the sign of Scorpio, can be very, very painful. Anyhow, the queen, who loves her son so dearly, decided that the best person to handle that energy would be her son, the prince. So she assigned him the heaviest job in the kingdom and said, "You will have to deal with the shadows that naturally come by the creation of life. And where everybody else deals with life, you will have to conquer death." So in that sense, I hope it's clear. Okay? Now, the king and the queen, you know, everything was going on just fine, and they still loved each other. So they kissed again, and lo and behold, they had a baby girl. And the baby girl was the princess. And the princess is very delicate because she's feminine. So even though she's the daughter of the king and the queen, she's very delicate, but she has so much power. But the way that her character discharges that power is through love and grace. So every time that something needs to be done with grace and diplomacy, which is, you know, a kingdom, if you look at it, a kingdom cannot always be going to war. A kingdom can also solve its issues by diplomacy. A kingdom can also solve its issues by good laws and respect and dialogue, and by offering good opportunities to its neighbors, by fair trade, by knowing its values, and by giving those values to the kingdoms nearby. And the person that is in charge of that is the princess. Grace and kindness are the realms of the princess. So the princess, when she approached her dad, the king, said, "Since we need diplomacy in the kingdom, not just war like your brother, not just courage like your brother, because we don't always want to deal with shadows. We also want to deal with hope and light." Hope is a very Libran thing, you know, to have hope. It's a very Sagittarian Libran thing. So, you will start hearing in the dialogue of people that go online, just listen to their dialogue and listen to the way they speak. Listen to the words they utter the most, what they repeat the most constantly. And you will understand what planet is actually speaking. It's a program speaking through them. So you have Libra. And Libra, as we said, is the sign of the sage. But also remember that within Libra there is partnerships. Partnership and democracy. Okay? So, we can use the mind to not just communicate whatever message. We can use the mind to communicate harmonic messages. To communicate our intention to have peace. To be clear of how we want to go about our life so that everybody can have a fair life. So a very Libran type of society right now, you can't get more Libra than the European Union. European Union is the topmost Libran thing that has happened to this planet. India is another good example, but India is not exactly Libran. The European Union is, because you see, it's complex. You have many languages, right? Like in America, they have democracy, but it's basically one religion. Everybody's basically mostly Christian over there. And basically is one mindset, even though there's different states. It's not like they have different languages. In Europe, however, it's very diverse. It's people with different languages, with different customs, with different backgrounds. How is German same as Spanish? It's very, very different. So it's like many different people coming together and trying to understand each other. That is called the parliament. So, people and ambassadors. Like I have the good fortune of knowing the ambassador of Lithuania. He is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He is our friend. And, he'll be the smoothest person you could ever sit down to have a chat with. It's like he knows how to listen. He is always very proper. He'll never be aggressive. He knows how to treat you well so that you feel good in his presence. You absolutely feel no threats of war whatsoever. Everything is like eating with a silver spoon and, drinking with a silver cup when you're in the presence of this man. He is so smooth, like a good piece of jazz. He's smooth. So what you will notice is that Libran people can be very diplomatic, they can be very smooth, and their goal is peace, not war, which is the qualities of the sage. So even though war is necessary to protect the kingdom, diplomacy is also necessary to protect the kingdom. The balance of dialogue is necessary to protect the kingdom. You don't need to kill everybody in order to have peace. Peace can be made by war, but peace can also be made by peace. And usually long-lasting peace is a peace that is understood. So that you take for the princess, and the princess has peace within. So she's very gracious. Instead of moving with force, she moves with grace. So that's the princess. However, the princess also approached the queen. So the king gave the instruction to the princess that she should take care of diplomacy in the kingdom. So she should make just laws so that everybody in the kingdom would be happy. So this is fair play, right? She also has to arrange marriages, this type of thing. That what happens when you get married, what belongs to who. So that is, the law. So together Libra and Virgo are always looking for, right path and everything. Okay? So then the next thing is that the princess approached the queen. When the princess approached the queen said, the kingdom is so beautiful. We have so many natural beauty, so many natural resources. and people should be happy in the kingdom. Not just, it's what happens when you're safe, what happens when you're healthy, what happens when you have all those qualities. People are developing, this and that, people are developing so many areas, but people should also feel comfortable and be happy, and people should also celebrate, and people should also be so happy to be alive in the kingdom. So the queen said, well, why don't you take care of Taurus? And Taurus, the realm of consciousness of Taurus is the health of the body, the health of the senses, the wealth of the kingdom. So, it's all the gemstones in the kingdom, all the hidden gems of the kingdom, those places where you can go, not necessarily to do something, but just to be with yourself. Every time somebody wants to open a restaurant in the kingdom, or somebody wants to open a lodge or a hotel in the kingdom, every time there's hospitality in the kingdom, the person that takes care of hospitality is the princess. Because if the prince took care of hospitality, that would be about going and, shooting some ducks or, going hunting. But no, sometimes you can't go hunting, right? Sometimes you have to sit down in the dinner table and people have to have a waltz and a gala. So once again, Cinderella. Cinderella is a beautiful story of a girl that had nothing, but what she had in her heart were the qualities of a true princess. She was always fair to all the animals and diplomatic to all. She was always serving all. She was always looking for peace instead of war. She had no material possessions, but what she had was inner beauty. And what she did is, she got the prince. And then, they met at a waltz and a gala. So they danced together, and then the dress changes colors. All of Cinderella, that is a very Venus story. Cinderella is the quintessential story of Venus, right? So why is Cinderella a great princess? Because she's just so graceful. She's just brave and good. She's brave and simple. But she's brave to be herself, and she doesn't do it by war. She does it with peace. So all the animals are helping her. All the animals are her friends, and she has a fairy godmother, and the fairy godmother blesses her. That since you've been so good, you're blessed by the universe that, you can have an opportunity at having a wonderful time. And, when she shows up in the castle, it's not like she's a misfit. She fits perfectly well in the role because she's the highest in grace. That's why Cinderella wins in the end of the day, because she's good and she's gracious. So when you're trying to understand Venus, remember Cinderella. You got it. All right? So the queen gave Cinderella Taurus. So this is the princess. Princess. Princess gets Taurus. Princess. So the king gives her Libra, the queen gives her Taurus. Okay? So that's the feminine energy. But then what happens is everybody, it's like somebody's taking care of the war, somebody's taking care of the politics, somebody's taking care of the castle. Both the king and the queen are taking care of the castle. Everybody's engaged. But then what happens to the rest of the people? It's like, how do we show them the difference between good and evil? How do people understand that? When should we go to war? When should we not go to war? When should we kill? When should we not kill? When should we, maybe cut a tree? When should we not? What is the meaning of life? Where is the kingdom going? What is the purpose of this whole thing? So the king understands it's like, even I'm limited, even though I have all the power, even I'm limited and I don't understand the entire universe. It's like, who can explain that to me? So along comes the priest. And the priest is that person in the kingdom who represents our connection with God and our connection with our higher self. The priest is the intermediary between the higher realms of consciousness and the earth kingdom. So the priest or the Brahmin in traditional Vedic wisdom, the prince or the Brahmin is in charge of guiding the king to take the best choices possible. So how does the priest do it? The priest always has in mind that which is pure, that which is true, that which is real, that which is kind. So the priest always has, the values. And the priest always has God at the center of the kingdom and reminds the king that he is just an administrator just like everybody else. And that actually the kingdom belongs to God, not to him. So the priest does a wonderful work. And when the priest approaches the king, he says, okay, so I will come and work for you, right? And hopefully by our culture and by our understanding of what life is about, right? By keeping what, since time immemorial is truth. It is known to be truth. The Vedas, actually the meaning is that which is known. So how to keep that alive? So he's trying to keep that alive. So he asks the king, he asks the king for a realm, and the king says, well, I can't give you a realm. You have to have a realm given by somebody else. So the priest asks God for a realm. And God gives the sadhu or the sage or the priest the realm of Sagittarius. From the side of the king, Jupiter, by the way, Jupiter is the largest planet. Jupiter is the largest planet, and Jupiter, by the king, has the realm of Sagittarius. Why? Because at some point in our life, we all understand that having wealth and being powerful and being intelligent is not going to be enough. There has to be more to life. So we have existential questions. Even when we've dealt with our shadows and conquered our dragons, we still want to know that which is beyond this life, that which is beyond this realm of consciousness. So this is why Sagittarians have a very large drive, like a horse, and they are having an arrow because they have a direction where they want to shoot. The arrow can go beyond the physical presence. The horse can run somewhere. So when you combine those two, the symbolism is actually super strong. Because imagine that you had the stamina of a horse. How far could you run? What places could you go to? But that you had not the instinct of an animal, but the will of a man and the intelligence of a man to guide that force to somewhere good. So that goodness is philosophy. The difference between knowledge and philosophy is you can know so much and you know what works like a formula. That is a scientific formula. Every time you repeat it, it'll work. But philosophy is a personal understanding that has been realized by experience. So it's a communion, so to speak. So when you're in Sagittarius, these people have so much fire that they want to experience. What do they want to experience? It's the realm of joy. Sagittarius is the realm of joy. What Sagittarius are moved by is trying to figure out how we can live in a state of ananda, joy. How the realm can only be not only enjoying their senses, which is what the princess does well, but how we can get spiritual experience of joy. So that is Sagittarius. And in order to do that is trial and error. Also, somebody has to preach, which means somebody has to teach. Whoever doesn't know, there has to be a method so that people can also develop their higher selves. Otherwise, everybody would be left, in their basic instincts, which is what Angana was asking. So it's not only that Aries is working alone. If the king of your kingdom has sun in Aries, the king of your kingdom is always going to want to conquer all their kingdoms. But the question is, what for? So that is where Jupiter is helping the king. And they are working together, remember, in your microcosmos. In your microcosmos, all these characters are there inside of you. And somebody's playing those characters out. Those characters are being played outside of you. Okay, so Jupiter gets Sagittarius, and then what's the job of Sagittarius? Joy, wisdom, positive expansion, okay? But mostly I would say experience and understanding. I left you in the table that I give you, the cosmic relationships. I have put a word that accurately describes each one of the signs. So for Sagittarius is I inspire. You know, in our day and age, inspiration is like a, you know, like we don't see it so so good, because we think that inspiration is something that birthday cards, that's the job of birthday cards, to inspire you. But actually the deep meaning of the word inspiration is to breathe spirit into. I understand and I inspire. So in order to inspire somebody, you have to understand yourself. In order to breathe spirit or breathe fire or breathe essence into somebody and inspire them to become, better than they already are, there has to be a method. So all religion and spirituality lives here. Sagittarius is actually the sign of Guru. So Guru lives in Sagittarius, and Guru goes out of the kingdom to try to spread the message of wisdom and joy for everybody. Okay? So that's why Guru is a teacher, but it's also a preacher, which means preaching is to inspire others to follow that which is best for them, to reconnect with their higher selves. And then when Jupiter went to the queen reminded the priest that, it's okay to inspire people and it's okay to uplift people, and we have to preach. But somebody's gotta take care of people, and somebody has to be giving kindness to people and distributing kindness to people and compassion to people, even to those who are not so smart, even to those who are not so brave, even to those who are not so, desiring, right? Those who have less, those who are more limited. So that is not by right, it is by kindness and compassion. So the queen's agency of, giving kindness and compassion to others is in Pisces. So Pisces also belongs to Jupiter. And Jupiter is the sign of paradise. Pisces. Pisces is the sign of paradise. It is the sign of innocence. It is the sign of purity as well. Like a childlike state of purity where everything is possible. So it's very dreamy. And this realm is a realm where, Jupiter is going to be acting with kindness and compassion. So for example, when you have, like right now, we have Pope Francis. He's both a Sagittarian, but he's very Pisces. Jesus Christ is in the era of Pisces of the world, which has lasted for about 2,000 years. We're going out of Pisces and we're going into Aquarius. And that's why even the religious system that the whole world is following is kind of shifting, because we're going into an Aquarian era. Aquarian is going to be more about accepting that, there's different colors in the rainbow and that every color can reach illumination. In the era of Pisces, it was kindness and compassion, and that was exemplified by Lord Jesus Christ, which is like, many examples. Turn the other cheek. If somebody punches you, turn the other cheek. He was very humble. He was just teaching to fishermen. Why is it matter for a fisherman? Fishermen are not like, priests. They're laymen, probably from low caste. But anyway, his disciples he chose from the fishermen. He was distributing bread to all. But you know, so many symbols are there that tell us about the realm of consciousness of Pisces. And Pisces is that realm where only kindness and compassion is being given out. At the moment, Pope Francis, he's a Franciscan. And Francis was the such type of person that he would speak to the bird, and he would speak to the wolf, and he would speak to the animals. And he was extreme poverty, almost had nothing. So it's always that dialogue of kindness and compassion, not so much dogma or what is right, which would be the philosophical conclusion of Sagittarius. But it's go beyond the philosophical conclusion and, just give kindness and mercy, not according to right, but according to free distribution. So one of the things is that you must know, the king realizes that the wealthiest person in the kingdom should be Jupiter. And Jupiter is naturally super wealthy because, who do we give our best to? The person that makes us happy. And who has that power in the kingdom? The priest. The priest reminds everybody how to reach that place inside of themselves where they can be spiritually happy. The princess, the princess can take you to a spa, and the princess can give you a nice dinner and a nice show and a nice experience, like going to the movies with popcorn. But it's very ephemeral because it's according to the senses, right? It's enjoying yourself. The princess can create peace, but peace within a realm of, within a material realm lasts only for a certain time. But what the priest can do is he can help you connect with those parts of yourself that are everlasting. So, Jupiter is always superior than Venus because Jupiter teaches us that which is eternal. Venus teaches us to enjoy ourselves in the temporary. Jupiter teaches us how to enjoy ourselves in the eternal, transcendental. So, if you look at anything that has happened in Europe, the most beautiful places, the biggest constructions and the most beautiful places are always churches and cathedrals. Even back with the Aztecs, even back with the Egyptians, the pyramids are places of worship. The Mayans and the Aztecs, they had their places of worship, which is basically the places where we go to remember that, we're microscopic in the scale of the universe, that we're part of the universe, and that we have a relationship with the universe. So Jupiter is the biggest planet after the Sun. Jupiter is the biggest planet, and after the Sun, it has the most power, and it's extremely benefic. So Jupiter is always good. Wherever Jupiter is placed in your chart, that's your lucky charm. That's the place where you're going to have fortune, and that's what you're going to have a lot of. You're going to have a lot of what Jupiter means. Okay? And Jupiter is good, and he's always giving, and he's always giving chances, and he's always encouraging, and he's always positive. All right? So I hope Jupiter is understood. Then, somebody had to do the administrative work beyond, the political work which is done by all of these people. Somebody had to collect the taxes because, it costs money to run a kingdom. So somebody has to collect the rent. Somebody has to collect the taxes. Somebody has to judge those who have acted against the rights of another so that we can keep balancing the kingdom. So somebody has to enforce that by law, So somebody in the kingdom has to be restrictive so that everybody else can be expansive. If you see, most of the planets tend to expand and play, but in order to do that, somebody's gotta keep everything on track, everything on time. Somebody has to remind people that winter does come. Somebody has to remind people that there is abundance, but there is also poverty. That sometimes the kingdom goes through bad times. Somebody has to take care of the finances. Somebody has to, limit that which otherwise the kingdom would fall into chaos. And that, of course, is, even though the king can pass a law according to his will, because he has that power, You know, he has to consult with somebody that understands economy and somebody that understands social interactions. The king is usually going to be meeting with other kings and other princes and people of the high class. But who's going to be meeting with the peasant, with those people that are not very learned or very well read, and that also are part of the kingdom and contribute to the kingdom? So we have Saturn. So Saturn approaches the king and he says, well, you know what? I want a possibility for the layman to be able to grow in life by the capacity of his work. If somebody works hard, they should be able to end up their life better than they started. You know, I think that's fair. So it's like, you know, it's like that makes logic, that makes sense. And I also want everybody in the kingdom to feel safe and protected. So there must be like a police force. Like if you see the king, he always has guards around him, and they are dressed in black, and they're ready to kill anybody that comes nearby the king, protect the king, you know? So the king always has a barrier, you know, between him and the people. If you're watching the news right now, you know, the president of America just put a barrier between the White House and the people. That barrier that protects the king, that is Saturn. And it's also the tax collection. So every time we pay our taxes, who likes to pay their taxes? Raise your hand and say, nobody will raise their hand. Nobody likes to pay taxes. Like I have to pay taxes now on the 20th. I'm like, I don't want to pay taxes. You know, why are you taking money from me? But what I don't realize is that actually the kingdom of Lithuania gives me safety, peace, you know, good water. It gives me a stable democracy, a somewhat stable economy. But all of that stuff is being done by, you know, all of these people that I never see. And the only thing I see is that once a year the government takes from me, you know, a percentage of what I have earned. And then that money goes back into the kingdom, and the kingdom redistributes it between the, you know, schooling. Oh, Jupiter is also schools, by the way. I forgot to say that. Jupiter is in charge of teaching others. Mercury and Jupiter, okay? And not just religion, also schools. So, you know, the government redistributes that. And when I speak about government, I am speaking about the combined power of sun, but also the government enforces through Saturn. Government is very Saturn power. But government is also sun, so they have to combine. So that redistribution of wealth, that is done by Saturn. So, you know, like if you've ever met a judge, people that are very logical, they don't negotiate a lot. They're just very economical about their choices. It's like yes or no, you know? They don't sway by feeling. So Saturn will never sway by emotion. Mars will. If you if you tell something to Mars that he doesn't like, he'll attack you. But to Saturn, he won't. But Saturn will enforce the law, whether he likes you or not. If you have committed a crime, Saturn will enforce. And the only person that can save you, perhaps, is the king or Jupiter. You know, that they give you a blessing, that the king says, okay, no. You know, he doesn't have to go to jail. But as far, you know, as karmic result goes, Saturn has the power to that. However, Saturn can also make you very wealthy. It can make you very powerful. Because if you're persistent and if you work every day of your life and if you save a coin every day, what happens is over the logical trespass of time, you will have savings in the bank. So you'll have savings. Savings is a very Saturn thing. Expenses are Jupiter. Savings are Saturn. So when a person has savings, they're naturally Saturnian. They tend to save money. They have a good Saturn. When people save their energy, which means, for example, I had I was always the type of guy that I would always finish my homework before going to have fun. But I had friends that always went to have fun before making their homework. And I always did my homework and I always did it on time. And I like to be like very strict about what I have promised. I like to be on time and I like to fulfill my duty. That is very Saturn. If a person has a good Saturn, they like to fulfill their duties. If a person has not good Saturn, they like to be free, They're never on time. You know, the homework is always late, or they don't do their homework, which is another approach. But that regulative system inside of ourselves that gives us structure, that is Saturn. So for example, when you have a CEO or a manager, that is Saturn, okay? The person that is managing you, that would be Saturn, okay? The person that is restricting you, if you had very restrictive parents, that is Saturn. If you had a very tough teacher at school, that is Saturn. So also dark forces are represented by Saturn. But for example, somebody that has a superhero that has a very heavy Saturn is Batman. He's got a heavy Scorpio. Batman is definitely a Scorpio. And he has a lot of Saturn in that tail. So that's why he's always in darkness. And he always dresses in black, you know, and it's a bat. So that's Saturn. All the dark stuff is Saturn. So Saturn goes to the king and says, my dear king, you know, we need to develop some technology so that we can progress, you know, so science is necessary in the kingdom. And the king says, what, religion is not enough? No, Saturn says also, you know, science is necessary to watch the planets, to watch the stars, to watch the movement, to calculate mathematically. This is also necessary, and teaching that to people is necessary. So we need to develop technology. Also, you know, every time that the prince goes to war, you know, the person he's going to war with, once they had a sword, but in the next war they're going to have a cannon. And then in the next war they're going to have a gun, which is a portable cannon. Who do you think takes care of technology in the kingdom? It is the scientists. Who are the scientists? Saturn. Okay? So Saturn can sit down and analyze how the universe works so that they can reproduce a result. So sometimes the king will call a priest, but sometimes the king will call a wizard. The wizard is Saturn. The wizard knows how the universe works. So that which is known like magic is actually the manipulation of the elements to produce a result. If you've ever read Harry Potter is a very Saturnian tale. A wizard is Saturnian. A wizard can also be Jupiterian. But Jupiter and Saturn are the wizards. But Jupiter moves more with divine power, which means with the blessings of God. And Saturn, what Saturn knows how to do is he manipulates the forces, manipulates the energetic forces of the universe. They're called scientists. Modern day wizards are scientists. They're technologists. Okay? So it gives him Aquarius. The sun gives him Aquarius. And he says, you're going to be in charge of medicine from now on. People are falling sick in the kingdom. I want you to understand what heals. Yeah, I want you to study and understand, develop healing technologies, develop social technologies. So that's Saturn. So, you know, people that are very, you know, they will always give you a hard time about spirituality. And they're like, no, show me the facts. You know, how is that scientific? That's Saturn speaking, which is they cannot see beyond the physical material universe. That's science in a nutshell. People that are caught up in science, they want to measure everything by what is immediately tangible. Jupiter understands that there is so much more beyond the material universe, so much that is metaphysical, so much that is, you know, it's not just about how the machine works, it's what you use the machine for. Saturn wants to understand how to use the machine and how the machine works and how to keep the machine balanced and oiled and in optimal, like a mechanic. He's very mechanical. Jupiter is all about, well, okay, so the machine's working fine. Where are you going to take that machine? Where are you going? So that's Sagittarius. Where are you going? What are you going to use the machine for? Okay? So that's the difference between Saturn and... So Saturn is in Aquarius, he's a wizard or a technologist, right? So this is about technology. And it's about the physical universe. Or you can even say like energetic. I think energy is more. All right? And then finally, Saturn approaches the queen, and it's like, oh, my lady. It's like, what would you like me to do with my qualities? And then the queen says, well, we would like you to become a governor. We're going to give you a province because we can't be everywhere at the same time, and we can't be making war everywhere. So, it's like, how about we give you a province somewhere, and you become the governor of that province, and you keep everything, and he names him a lord, it's like, okay, you're gonna manage that place. So that is a lordship that Saturn has. So Saturn can also represent the government. It can also represent, nowadays it represents a guardian or personal success. So like the mayor or the guardian, that's a very Saturn type of thing, because those people have to be mega responsible. So I would say Capricorn, yeah? Capricorn. This is Aquarius, 11 is Aquarius. Capricorn is like responsibility. Then you become a guardian. When you have a lot of responsibility throughout your life, and you can hold responsibility and you're very accountable, you may become like a judge, like the judge that bangs this thing in the jury. It's like, you're gonna go to jail for the rest of your life. Can you imagine how cold you have to be? It's like, there's a human being in front of you and he made a boo-boo, he messed up. But can you imagine having to judge someone in such a level that you're gonna go to the gas chamber, or it's electric chair for you, or it's like have his head cut off. What level of logic you have to use in that sense to rid the kingdom of that darkness. So that's something that these people do. CEOs and managers in very high levels in corporations, all the corporate world, that's Saturn right there. People that are like super strict and they're super economical. They won't give you a coin. They don't want to spend anything, only what is necessary, because those people understand that within the passage of time, being economical results in safety, security, and stability. Understand? So remember, Saturn moves both in air and earth, but Saturn is more in a governmental level. Capricorn means government. Okay? But it also means success. So if you want to be successful in the kingdom, you better not spend a lot. You cannot be frugal with your energy. You gotta focus. You gotta have laws. Things have to be clear, right? Like now, we've come to live in the ashram, and it's very nice to live in the ashram. But what we have noticed is that when you live in an ashram, there's expenses. Now the COVID-19 came along, so there has to be restrictions. There's only 2 bathrooms for about 20 people. So there has to be organization. Everybody eats every day. So there has to be a schedule and a table. And then there has to be somebody that enforces that upon others. And that person is usually very responsible and somebody that other people trust. Because if everybody's just having a party, then everything falls apart because nobody understands, and then people start complaining that the rules are not fair, that somebody has some privileges that somebody else doesn't. So Saturn is the person that makes things clear for everybody and enforces the law, enforces that clarity. So